In Matthew chapter 28, Christ called his disciples together, and he sent them out to all the corners of the earth to baptize all nations in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, that all generations to come would know about this faith. And it's come down to this time now, to you and me. Now, it's our turn. I've always thought of it to be a somewhat selfish attitude to look at whether I live or don't live out my faith as something that only affects me. We all need to realize that what we do here and now is not only about you and me and our lives. It's about future generations and the lives of countless others. It's about the future of the church in the world. Welcome to Battle Ready. I'm Doug Barry. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. You know, every current generation always rests upon the shoulders of the generations that have gone before it. We see this in most every area of life. We see this in the business world, political world. We see this in the education system. We see this in the world of sports. It's also very true in the area of our faith. The Catholic faith that we have in our world today, what we understand it to be, very much rests upon the shoulders of those who've lived it out before us, generations ago to now. Think about this. How faithful or unfaithful they were to Christ and to his church affects what we have today. Same goes for us, though. We Catholics alive today are preparing generations to come by how faithful or unfaithful we are to Christ and to his church, and by the type of zeal, commitment we have for the faith. This should be especially obvious in the family. Those of us who are married, husbands, wives, think of the influence we have over our spouse. Think of the influence that we have as husband and wife over our children, the next generation, and grandchildren, and so forth. When we take that responsibility seriously, just consider the consequences. When we are committed to our faith, consider the consequences and how amazing and wonderful those consequences are. But the flip side is also true. If we don't take it seriously, if we're half-hearted in the way we live the faith and we don't pass it on, we don't train our children in the spiritual weapons of the faith, just consider the devastation that can come from that. We see it, we know it, it's all around us. And that devastation can last for generations. We need to realize that it's upon our shoulders right now, and we need to respond. No excuses. Recently, I met with a couple of families, Tony and Judy Fulton and Craig and Carrie Westmore, and we talked about the importance of raising their children up and how serious it is that they train them in the spiritual weapons that God has given us through the church, because those children, like all of us, will face battles, and they need to be ready to handle them. And it all begins with what happens in the marriage. Tony, how do you personally see your own life, your own relationship with God, your soul in the midst of this spiritual warfare that you deal with on a day-to-day basis?
In order to enter warfare, one is going to have to be prepared himself. So I'm not going to be able to help Judy. I'm not going to be able to help anyone else unless I have a good spiritual life. And that's something that was just forced into me when I was in college. I was fortunate to have a strong religious conversion when I was in college, and so I was around very strong people at our Newman Center here in Lincoln. It's where I met her. And that was pounded into us that you have to be strong if you're going to have something to offer in marriage or the priesthood or what have you. So I have routine. That's the way I do it, the way Judy does it, the way our family does it. We have routine, and the routine liberates. But what I found over time is that those habits that we formed in our youth really are the liberating factors going forward. So we wake up in the morning, I'm getting ready for work, and I'm going to try to squeeze in the rosary because my goal is to have the rosary prayed before I get to work. And something that I learned, I didn't learn it, it came to me, so it had to have been the Holy Spirit. I remember praying the rosary. This is 1993, right after World Youth Day. I'd had a big religious conversion, and I was going to pray a rosary every day because that's what Pope John Paul II asked us to do. And it occurred to me that my enemy is watching me. And so that was when I first prayed the rosary aloud by myself. And it felt very strange. And I suppose it's normal that it would feel very strange, but I did that.
What was the point behind wanting to pray the rosary out loud? What were
So
you
he
thinking?
knew, so he didn't have to guess what was going through my mind. He knows full well. I'm invoking the Blessed Mother, and I'm thinking about the life of Jesus. It's difficult enough to pray the rosary and remain focused when that's what you're focused on. I'm a lay person, and so I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about my responsibilities to government, to family, to what have you. And I also want to contemplate the mysteries of my Lord. That's hard to do. So it's helped me, in addition to communicating to the devil, hey, look what I'm doing. It also helps me to concentrate. I think we're wired this way. I think God made us this way. So not everyone's probably going to pray the rosary aloud while they're in their car by themselves. But I tell you those were the thoughts I was having way back when. And ever since then, I've prayed my rosary aloud, even when I'm alone. It's a battle, and if we're going to be at battle, let's poke the guy in the eye.
So when you think about your children, you think about your wife, you think about the enemy. What goes through your head as the spiritual head of the home, spiritual protector of the home?
Yeah. Well, he'd love to have them. He'd love to be able to take them down. He'd love to be able to take down myself also. It seems to me, if I were in the devil's shoes, another thing I do is to see it from my enemy's eyes. It seems to me the further we are along in our spiritual life, probably the greater prize it would be for him to take us down. So I think of that for myself, and there's a little bit of urgency that I live a virtuous life.
Judy, when you see what's going on in our society, and you see the breakdown of morality and the erosion of family, and you see your husband out there fighting the fight, and your children going through this atmosphere that we're all living in, the environment we're living in, how do you put that into perspective with regards to spiritual battle and your role in fighting for your husband and your children?
I think that I'm on the battle lines behind the scenes, definitely. I need to be praying. I pray every single day for every kid to always put myself in the mindset of what would Mary do. There's always those, what would Jesus do? Mine is what would Mary do throughout the day. I've written it down a couple times and just kind of stick it around the house to remind myself, what would she be doing at this moment? I am vacuuming. What would Mary do? Well, I know she'd be in the mindset of contemplating Jesus. What is he doing today? What should I be called to be doing in my thoughts and my mind, not just my body, because I can do these mundane things over and over and over again. And I was just thinking of that the other day. I've been taking care of kids for 19 years straight, and I do the same thing over and over, but every day is new because I am praying about them in new ways and knowing that they're being attacked. And I have that peace of mind because Mary is with me and telling me kind of what I need to be doing and setting me straight.
In your 19 years of marriage, what have you done to really help bring the best of yourself to each other spiritually so you can strengthen the other one?
We're still learning, frankly. I really, it's hard to put a date on the evolution, but we've just come to this place where we have certain things that we pray for consistently every night. Before we go to bed, we'll say our prayers together. That really didn't happen unless we had something of spiritual depth before we got married. Young couples looking to get married, you should figure out how you pray together. because that's something that you should be doing throughout your marriage, and you're going to be spending a lot of time with each other.
Keeping in mind the goal that ultimately I think we set with each other too, that was another huge thing, was that the number one goal in our marriage will always be for us to get to heaven and to get each other to heaven. I think that teaching to me is huge, and so from that, everything kind of stems from that. So you know, if we're arguing, what would God do? What's the right thing? What's the justified thing?
What do you do to prepare yourself to be that spiritual heart of the home, that nurturer, and to bring to Craig in particular the best Catholic spiritual warrior you can be for the sake of his soul and your own?
It really started with choosing Craig as my husband first, making sure that before marriage that you pick the right person, and that, you know, your overall goal is to get that person to heaven. Craig does great with that, but to prepare myself, I'd say really just daily prayer, staying close to the sacraments. I get to go to daily mass every day with my job, work at a Catholic school, so that's just kind of built in. And on the sacraments of confession, when you don't do so well, that always helps. And, you know, rosary, and Mary was a perfect example.
Now, what do you see is necessary for yourself to bring to the marriage? I mean, what you've done to prepare yourself spiritually and work on your spiritual life regularly with prayer, reading, sacraments, and so forth, but how do you see your role as being, you know, the spiritual head of the family?
Ultimately, the responsibility lays on my shoulders. So ultimately, I need to be the leader. And then I'm also aware of statistics, or at least I've heard of them, where if the man is the one, and if the husband, the dad, the father, is the one in the family that is spiritual leader, so to speak, the percentage that my children will go on and remain strong in the faith is up in the 80, 90 percentile. If it's just the mom, and this is not to speak ill of mothers by any way, but I think then it drops down to like 20%. And to me, and what a big part of that is that if in families, it disheartens me when you see one is strong but the other is not, that always leaves that excuse for when they get older, and as they start to, like, well, he's not, and I love him, and of course he's not going to go to hell, you know, and so, you know, that leaves that out for them. And yet I think as a society, we need to accept that, you know what, there are people out there that we love, that we care for, that may not end up in heaven.
Right.
Because they weren't ready. What can you do for yourself and those that are closest to you to make sure that you don't have to worry about that?
The importance of me and my wife having a strong, committed faith is essential for us to having a strong, holy marriage. This is something that the devil despises. A strong, holy marriage is like a fortress. And every step that I take, that my wife takes to deepen personal relationship with God and then relationship with one another, is like fortifying the walls of that fortress. If and then when God grants children to the marriage, those children enter into a fortress where they are trained in the weapons of spiritual warfare, that those children then have a much better chance of fighting the good fight in their own personal lives. On the day you got married and you brought your spiritual lives that you had prepared to that point, and you're building, and I say building the walls of your fortress, and then your children are given to you. What do you do, and how do you see this, Tony, about raising up and training up your children to understand the spiritual fight, to understand the spiritual weapons that the church has given us, that God has given us to the church, and how to use that in battle?
We're raising up warriors, and we need them. We need them in a big way in this day and age. And, you know, maybe every age says this. C.S. Lewis says every age exhibits the symptoms of chronological snobbery. You know, it's always worse for us than it was for them. So maybe I'm guilty of that here, but I really am convinced that we are in grave need of strong spiritual warriors. And I'd like to think that we should be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So if we are bringing children into the world who are adding to the problem, that's on us. And we don't want to do that. We want our kids to be part of the solution.
And is this the sort of thing that you explain to them? Do you two talk to your children about some of this perspective that you have?
The older ones more directly with
Age
that
appropriate
language,
then.
but yeah, but that's they understand, and we say it to them all the time. We're different. We're countercultural. We're going to be doing things differently than maybe some of your friends are.
I'm more of the heart speaks to heart type of person, and so a lot of times the kids will come to me with problems at school. I saw a girl being shunned by others, and then I can give advice. I kind of give the motherly, this is what I would have done, this is what Mary would have done, and kind of the back way. Let's pray for them. Let's do that right now. Let's, what do you think they were feeling and thinking? And so I kind of go more into the emotional side of it, because they're a person too. Let's look at them as a soul. They have a soul, they're a person. Let's address that.
So now you take this fortress that you're building, and you're preparing these walls, and you're protecting it spiritually, just as you would the walls, keep it safe for your family, roof over the head and so forth. Your children that God's blessing you with, you have 2 that have been born and 1 that's in the womb now. What's that look like to you when you think about, now I've got to hand this on to them, and I have to train my children in these tools, these weapons that the church gives us to fight this good fight that St. Paul talks about?
To me, what is simple modeling is going to Mass every Sunday, doing the sign of the cross, genuflecting, and then while we're there, trying to teach as much as we can as far as like, this is, that's Jesus and what happened. And so like, but for the children, doing those things, but then also trying to do it within ourselves, model it within ourselves that, I'm not sluggishly wanting to go to Mass. I'm happy to go to Mass. I'm joyful in the fact that, God is here, that God, what He did for us with His giving His only Son, and showing that joy in what we do, I think is hugely important, because I've seen too many models of, no, let's sit by the edge, sit by the back, park over here, we can get out faster. We'll go right after communion. Like, no, I want to go to Mass. If we get there early, great. That's what we should do. Doesn't always happen. But then we stay afterwards, say a prayer afterwards. It's not something that is arduous. It's something that should be joyful. It's something that we want to show that joy. And I think that's something that we don't always do well with, but I think that's a key point to what I want to try and do with my family.
Carrie, as the spiritual heart of the home, Craig being the spiritual head of the home, you spiritual heart of the home, takes both the head and the heart for the body to move. How do you process and really take in the importance that you have, your role, to prepare your children to be able to handle the battles, the spiritual fight that they are going to be dealing with in their life?
When they are learning things like prayers, and just built into our day, it's living the faith. It's not just, learning the rules of the faith. It's really just built into your day and making it natural. We pray the angel of God every morning, and, whether it's we have 5 minutes before we have to jump in the car, we always make that time as a family. We always pray to know love, when we're praying obviously to God, to know love and serve you better.
When you two were going through your spiritual dry periods, when you're going through your doubts, your confusion, your ups and downs, like we all do, what is it that keeps you motivated? What is it that you're thinking about that drives you to continue to reinforce one another, seek your own personal prayer life, and then also to train your children up in these spiritual weapons because of the battle that is so real?
Well, ultimately, it almost sounds selfish, but this is my life. This is my husband. I want to end up on top in heaven, and I want my children to succeed. And the reading in 2 Maccabees always comes to my mind. And since I have 6 sons, close to 7, 1 daughter, but she had 7 sons that were tortured and put to the test and just driven, and they were trying to be tempted to leave God, to cast him aside. And the mother said, "Man up, don't do it. Come on, kid." And so the last son, he had to watch all of his other 6 brothers go, and she didn't back down. She wasn't in tears and all weepy. She was strong enough to tell him, "I would rather you die a horrible death like that than to give up on God. So get it done, make it happen." And I want to be kind of like that. I want to fight the fight. I want to win the fight. I want to be on the top and be with God in the end. And I want to bring everyone with me.
There are dry times in all of our lives, and for me, my dry times, I react emotionally. It's okay to have these dry times. I guess that's what I'm trying to come to grips with. It's okay to have dry times, and you're gonna fall. I'm gonna go to confession because I snapped at my kids. That's gonna happen between now and the end of my life. Recognize that you have a job to do, and you're gonna have mistakes. And when you have mistakes, that's why Christ, who is God in his wisdom, John 20, he gave us confession. So there's this, there was early on, and I still struggle with this, there's this want to be perfect in the practice of virtue. And we're told over and over that we rely on God for the grace to live a holy life. But there's this want inside of me anyway, and I bet it's with a lot of other people, that I can live these virtues because I am strong and of my own accord. That's not wrong, but there's a cooperation with God's grace. And for me, when I get in these dry times, there's part of me that I want to get through it, and that's important. But I also have been learning over time to reach out to God to help me through this spiritual dryness. I'm still learning that, frankly. But that was told to me some time back, and I think there's some truth to it. There has to be a certain amount of me willing to get through this spiritual valley, but it can't be singularly and solitarily me. We can't be saved in such way. It's Christ who saves. So I'm learning that still.
Knowing that the dry spells aren't the end, that it's going to, kind of come out again. I mean, anybody's been through a dry spell in their spiritual life, and, to know that my children are looking to me as an example, looking to me to lead them in the faith. Like I said, staying close to the sacrament, sometimes you just have to ask for the help that, God, this is really hard right now, and I am going through a dry spell, and then having Craig, that I can talk to him when things aren't going so well, and I know he's praying for me every day.
If I asked anyone if they would go through an hour, 24 hours of torture, of the worst pain they could think of, whatever it was, submit them to it. 24 hours. If you did that, I would give you everything the world had to offer. More than $1 billion. More than any number of anything you would ever want. Pretty sure most people would say, absolutely, I'll make it through it. What's life? It's 100 years to an eternity. It's not even an hour. Keep pushing. Work at it. I fail all the time. There's ways to get out of that. That's what confession's there for. You fail, you get back up again. That's the whole thing. And what's funny is that so many people that aren't Catholic know that. I mean, they pick up on the value. You watch Batman, the movies. It's not important that that you fall or why you fall. It's how you get back up again. That you get back up again. What's important is that you keep going. Well, that's very true within the Catholic faith. It's important that it doesn't matter how hard you fall. The forgiveness is always there. You just have to ask. He never leaves us. We walk away from him.
When it comes to the spiritual battle that we're in, the environment that we're living in our world right now, what is it that you are most concerned about for each other, for your husband, for your wife?
Slouching. A person doesn't start off with bad posture. They end up that way because they've slouched over a period of time. There's probably different ways to say that, but when anyone first gets married, there is this expectation of longevity and happily ever after. I mean, it's part of love. It's the nature of love's oriented that way, and it's done that way for a purpose, I'm sure. So what I have done, and you may not know this, but you will now, as will everyone watching. What does a failed marriage look like? Okay? And then I think to myself, then how did they get there? And so what I have done anyway is to think about, well, what steps would have to occur in order for a marriage to fail? And then, the contra, don't take those steps. Or recognize when those steps might be taken.
Along the same lines is just getting lazy is kind of what I was thinking too, is you just get familiar with someone and start slipping away and you forget, now we forgot to pray tonight. Let's just wait another day, and we forgot the next night and the next night. So just getting lazy is one of my biggest fears, and that's our human nature, but it is also the devil is whispering constantly, it's okay, it's all right. And it makes it more and more, it makes it easier. The more bad you do, the easier it gets to do. So that's kind of one of my biggest fears, is just getting lazy.
I know that the battles are going to be there. They give up. You know, that I haven't done my job as a mother and as a wife to make sure that they don't. I know, to think that my kids might someday walk away from the faith like I did, that's scary, because I know how hard it was for me to come back. I just pray that they don't ever have to walk away to have that love forever.
It comes down to this. You and I, we cannot give what we do not have. If I don't have a relationship with God, if I'm not seeking the grace of God in my life, I can't give much to the woman on the other end of this ring, or the children that God has blessed me with, or future generations. If you and I take seriously the responsibility that each of us has, our own shoulders, our own act of the will, to cooperate with the grace of God and to seek out the grace of God, then what He can do through us to affect generations to come for the whole world is enormous. But we need to take it seriously, and we must not waste time. Be relentless in your pursuit of the grace of God and that relationship with God, and make no excuses. Whatever you do, please follow EWTN and Doug Barry's YouTube channels, and follow us on Facebook as well. And don't forget, when we remember generations to come are affected by us and here and now, then we are